You freeze in high pressure moments because you've been taught the wrong thing your entire life. People tell you to stay calm, think positive, be confident, but none of that works when your heart is hammering against your ribs and your vision starts to narrow. In those moments, your body takes over, your instincts hijack your mind, and fear becomes the one giving the orders. And here's the hard truth: if you don't learn how to interrupt that process, fear will make your decisions for you. I've watched it happen in boardrooms, on highways, in hospital waiting rooms, everywhere. But in the teams, I learned something most people never will. In the middle of a breach, with alarms blaring and gunfire cracking, I discovered a counterintuitive technique that can flip fear off like a switch. It's not confidence, it's not courage, it's something you can do in 10 seconds. I call it the combat breath, and it saved my life more than once. Before we go any further, I need you to do something. Put your phone face down, turn off your notifications, close anything else you have open. If you can't do that, if your brain can't stay present for a few minutes, you're not ready for this, and that's fine. Click off the video. This is your first test. High pressure moments don't wait for you to focus. You either command your attention or you fall apart. If you're still here, good, you passed. Now we can continue. I'm ex-Navy SEAL John. I spent over a decade in the world's most elite special operations force, and I felt fear in places most people will never step foot in. I've been pinned down behind a crumbling wall while rounds slap the dirt inches from my face. I've watched doors blow off their hinges and felt the concussive force hit my chest like a sledgehammer. And let me tell you something honest, I wasn't born fearless. I felt fear every single time. What separated me from the guy who froze wasn't genetics, talent, or some Hollywood version of bravery. It was training, simple, repeatable, and brutally effective. Training that stripped fear of its power and handed it back to me. I'm not here to give you motivational fluff or feel good advice. I'm here to give you a strategy that works in combat and works in life. And if you practice what I'm about to teach you for just 7 days, you will feel your fear response change. Not someday, not eventually, 7 days. Here's how this mission is going to run. The strategy has 3 phases. Phase 1, you're going to understand what fear actually is because you can't defeat an enemy you've never identified. Phase 2, I'm going to teach you the combat breath, the same technique we used during firefights to reset the mind in under 10 seconds. Phase 3, we're going to translate that battlefield skill into civilian life. Stress at work, pressure in relationships, emergencies, whatever you're facing. And before we move forward, I want you to check in. Drop a comment with one word: control. That tells me you're locked in, mentally present, and ready for the next phase of this training. Now fall in, because we're about to step directly into the moment fear hits, and you're going to learn how to take command of it before it takes command of you. Most people think fear is some mysterious emotional monster hiding in the shadows, waiting to ambush them, but fear is not mysterious at all. It's mechanical, predictable, programmable. And once you understand what it actually is, physically, chemically, you stop treating it like a ghost and start treating it like an opponent you can outmaneuver. When I was in the teams, our instructors didn't sugarcoat it. They taught us that fear begins with a trigger your nervous system interprets as a threat. That trigger can be a gunshot, a shout, a sudden movement, or even an email notification that carries bad news. Your brain fires off a signal to your adrenal glands, and they dump adrenaline into your bloodstream like someone pulling a lever on a slot machine. That adrenaline spikes your heart rate, constricts your blood vessels, and floods your muscles with oxygen. Cortisol follows right behind it, tightening your chest, sharpening your senses, and pushing your mind into survival mode. This is why your breathing goes shallow and fast. This is why your hands shake. This is why you feel like the world suddenly zooms in on one tiny detail while everything else fades out. It's not weakness, it's biology. Fear was originally designed to keep you alive when you were face to face with a predator, when the wrong move meant you weren't going home at all. In that environment, speed mattered more than accuracy. Instinct mattered more than thought. Running, fighting, hiding, those were the only 3 options. But the modern world doesn't play by those rules anymore. Today, you're not facing a tiger. You're facing deadlines, conversations, decisions, uncertainty. And the problem is your body still reacts as if each one of those moments is life or death. You sit in a meeting and your pulse starts to accelerate. You get a message from your boss and your breathing tightens. You stand up to speak and your chest locks up like you're about to sprint for your life. The ancient system that once saved you now overwhelms you. Instead of sharpening your mind, fear scrambles it. Instead of preparing you, it paralyzes you. Here's what I learned after enough missions to fill a lifetime. Fear is not the enemy. Your reaction to it is. In combat, I watched grown men freeze because they trusted their instinct more than their training. I also watched quiet, unassuming guys step into chaos with absolute clarity because they had learned to override the first surge of panic. They weren't fearless. Nobody is. They just understood what fear was trying to do, and they refused to let it take the wheel. Once I learned that lesson, everything changed for me. I stopped fighting fear and started directing it. I let the adrenaline sharpen my awareness without letting it cloud my judgment. I let the cortisol heighten my senses without letting it shut down my voice. I used fear instead of letting fear use me. And this is where the tension builds because understanding fear isn't enough. You can know the science, the biology, the reasons behind every sensation and still crumble when it matters. Information doesn't stop panic. Knowledge doesn't slow your heart rate. You need a tool, something immediate, something tactical, something you can deploy in real time when the pressure spikes. In the teams, we were taught a method that does exactly that. A method that turns that adrenaline dump into focus. A method that pulls you out of tunnel vision and back into the fight. You've already heard me name it, but you haven't learned how to use it yet. We're heading straight toward the solution. And once I teach it to you, fear will never hit you the same way again. When fear hits you full force, it doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't knock. It kicks the door in and floods your body with noise, your pulse pounding in your ears, your chest tightening, your thoughts scattering like loose ammunition on a concrete floor. In those moments, most people try to calm down, but calming down is impossible when your biology is in full alert. In the teams, we couldn't afford that luxury. In a firefight, there is no pause button. On a dive, panic can kill you faster than any enemy. During a hostage extraction, hesitation is the difference between life saved and life lost. So, we were taught something different. We learned how to intercept fear before it had the chance to take command. We learned the combat breath. The first time I used it in the field was during a nighttime breach. We were stacked on a door, waiting for the signal, listening to muffled voices inside. The intel said 2 people. My gut said more. I felt the adrenaline spike. Sudden, sharp, electric. My breathing started to shorten, narrowing into quick, shallow pulls. That's tunnel vision beginning, not in your eyes, but in your breath. And right there, pressed against the wall with explosives taped to the doorframe, I closed my eyes for half a second and started the sequence. 4 seconds in, 4 seconds hold, 6 seconds out. The combat breath. By the time I finished 2 cycles, my heart rate had dropped just enough for my brain to snap back online. The door blew, we moved, and everything slowed into clarity. Here's what's happening when you use combat breath. When you inhale for 4 seconds, you're triggering your diaphragm to expand fully, sending a signal through the vagus nerve that tells your body you're not in immediate danger. When you hold for 4, you stabilize the oxygen exchange and interrupt the panic spiral. When you exhale for 6, you activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the part responsible for calm, logic, precision. In simple terms, you're flipping your body from survive to think. This isn't meditation. This isn't relaxation. This is neurological control. You're lowering your heart rate, widening your field of awareness, and restoring the part of your brain responsible for decision making. In 10 seconds, you go from drowning in adrenaline to standing on solid ground again. I used it on dives when visibility dropped to 0 and a teammate's fin brushed my leg unexpectedly, sending my mind into a split-second panic. I used it during a medevac when we were trying to stabilize a wounded man, and I had to make a call that would decide whether he lived long enough to reach the bird. I used it in training when instructors screamed in our faces, trying to overwhelm our senses and break our composure. Every time, the process was the same. Fear hits, breath resets, clarity returns. And here's the part most people don't understand until they feel it themselves. Combat breath doesn't eliminate fear, it reorganizes it. Before the breath, fear is chaos, fast, loud, wild. After the breath, fear becomes information. It sharpens your attention instead of scattering it. It gives you speed without panic, alertness without overload. You shift from I can't think to I know exactly what to do next. Imagine this in your own life. You're about to step into a tough conversation. You're seconds away from speaking in front of a room. You're driving and someone swerves into your lane. You're hit with sudden pressure. And for a moment, you feel the surge, that instinct to freeze, overreact, or shut down. Now imagine taking one single combat breath, 10 seconds, and suddenly your hands stop shaking, your voice stabilizes, your thoughts align like they've been put back into formation. You feel yourself switch from victim of the moment to commander of it. That shift isn't theory, it's real. I've lived it in places where losing control meant losing everything, and now you're going to learn how to use it exactly the same way. Most people hear combat breath and think it's something reserved for war zones or disaster scenes, something only useful when bullets are flying or alarms are blaring. But the truth is, the battlefield follows you everywhere. It just changes uniforms. In civilian life, fear doesn't hit you with explosions, it hits you with pressure. A boss calling you into their office, a partner raising their voice during an argument, a room full of people waiting for you to speak, a phone call in the middle of the night. These moments don't look like combat, but your nervous system can't tell the difference. Stress is stress, pressure is pressure, and your body reacts to all of it the same way. Adrenaline spikes, breathing shortens, your focus collapses into a narrow tunnel. For years, I watched people crumble over situations that had nothing to do with danger and everything to do with fear. And I realized something important. If you can control your physiology in combat, you can control your life anywhere. The first time I saw combat breath work outside the teams, I was helping an entrepreneur who was terrified of speaking in front of investors. He'd freeze the moment he stood up, shoulders tensed, face pale, voice stuck behind a dry throat. He told me it felt life or death, and in a way, it was. His career depended on it. I had him do one cycle of combat breath before stepping on stage. 4 seconds inhale, 4 seconds hold, 6 seconds exhale. His shoulders dropped, his jaw loosened, his voice came out steady. He didn't become fearless. He became functional. He took command of the moment instead of letting the moment command him. You can use the same process at work. Let's say you're walking into a high-stakes meeting. You can feel the pressure building before the conversation even starts. Your mind begins racing through scenarios, your breathing tightens, and you start imagining everything that could go wrong. Instead of letting your body drag you into panic, you stop right outside the door. You plant your feet and you run one combat breath, 10 seconds. As you exhale, your thoughts stop scattering, your heartbeat steadies. The fear doesn't vanish, but it stops controlling you. You walk in clear, calm, and ready. Arguments at home are another battlefield many people never train for. You raise your voice, they raise theirs, and suddenly you're no longer speaking. You're defending, reacting, bracing. That's fear talking. Fear of being unheard, misunderstood, disrespected. But imagine this instead, mid-argument. When your pulse starts climbing, you pause for a single inhale. 4 seconds, you hold it, 4 seconds, and then you release a slow 6 second exhale. Your tone softens, your brain reopens, you start hearing instead of reacting, you respond instead of attacking. One breath can stop a conflict from turning into something destructive. And emergencies, those moments when everything hits at once, are where this technique becomes life-saving. I've coached people through panic attacks, car accidents, and medical scares using this exact sequence. When chaos erupts, the person who breathes with intention becomes the anchor everyone else depends on. Your breath becomes your weapon against panic. Your clarity becomes the stability others lean on. Let's run one cycle together right now, wherever you're sitting. Don't overthink it, just follow my voice. Inhale slowly for 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now exhale for 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Feel that? That drop in tension is your body switching systems. That widening of awareness, that's your mind coming back online. You've just experienced the same reset I used in combat, the same reset countless people use every day to control moments that would otherwise overwhelm them. And here's the transformation I want you to burn into your memory. Control your breath, control your fear, control your fear, control the moment. This is how you bring battlefield discipline into everyday life. Not with aggression, not with bravado, but with control. And control begins with something as simple, as ancient, and as powerful as your breath. People think mastering fear is a one-time breakthrough, like flipping a switch and suddenly becoming unshakable. But if there's one truth the team's carved into me, it's this. Control is not a moment, it's a habit. The combat breath will reset you in 10 seconds, but that's just the entry point. Breath gives you access. Mindset keeps you there. Anyone can calm themselves once, but lifelong fear control comes from something deeper, something quieter, something most people overlook because it requires discipline, not inspiration. Breath is step one. The mindset you build around it is step two, and that's where the transformation really begins. During my time in the teams, instructors drilled a principle into us that I didn't fully appreciate until years later, when I was standing in front of civilians who wanted to know why they collapsed under pressure. The principle is simple, brutal, and true in every high-stakes moment you will ever face. You don't rise to the level of your expectations, you fall to the level of your training. Let that sink in. You can expect yourself to stay calm, to stay focused, to stay in control when fear hits. You can hope you'll make the right decision, hope you won't panic, hope you'll stay steady. But expectations don't hold up when your heart rate spikes and your mind starts spiraling. When the pressure hits, you don't become your ideal self, you become your practiced self. In combat, this rule meant everything. I saw guys who were confident during downtime crack under real stress because confidence wasn't the thing they'd trained. They had trained performance, not composure. They had trained tactics, not breath. They had trained strength, not stillness. When rounds were flying and chaos erupted, they didn't rise to their expectations. They fell to whatever level of control they had repeated day after day. And the ones who had practiced managing fear, breath by breath, moment by moment, were the ones who stayed functional when it mattered most. This applies to you just as much as it did to us. If you only use the combat breath when you feel overwhelmed, you're not training, you're reacting. And reacting won't build mastery. To make fear something you control instead of something that dominates you, you need to practice before the pressure hits. You need to run the breath sequence when you're calm, when you're bored, when you're in the car, when you're waiting in line, when the stakes are low. Every time you do it, you're carving a pathway in your nervous system, teaching your body exactly where to go when stress tries to take over. When fear arrives, your body won't search for a solution. It will go straight to the one you've trained. You have to make fear familiar, not in a reckless way, but in a controlled, deliberate, consistent way. The more often you enter that state of intentional calm, the less room fear has to take over when it sneaks up on you. I'm not telling you to eliminate fear. That's impossible, even for us. What I'm telling you is far more powerful. Make fear predictable. Make it a signal, not a threat. Let it sharpen you instead of shrinking you. If you take 10 seconds in the morning and 10 seconds at night to run the combat breath, you'll feel your baseline shift. Your reactions soften, your clarity sharpens, your heart rate starts responding to you instead of dragging you around. And if you keep doing it for weeks, your entire relationship with fear changes. You stop seeing pressure as an ambush and start seeing it as terrain you already know how to navigate. This is the SEAL rule for lifelong fear control. Train the calm, not the chaos. When the moment hits, and it will, you won't rise to who you hope you are. You'll fall to who you've prepared yourself to be. And if you've trained right, that version of you will be ready.